Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going over my stunning new 2024 presidential election prediction map between Trump and Biden, basically pre-debate. As we all know, roughly 4 days from now, this video gets uploaded. We have a presidential debate between Biden and Trump. And so this is my prediction before the debate actually happens. But before we get started with the map, make sure you guys are subscribed as we are approaching 3,000 and click the bell so you don't miss out on any of my content. Also, we have memberships. You can find a link to that in the description section. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, press the like button. Now back to the topic of today's video. Let's begin with this map. So starting off with the typical likely states that are now moving into the safe states for Donald Trump, I do think both Iowa and Ohio are now safe. Actually, Ohio's likely for Trump, but I do think that Iowa is very red. I think Trump should be able to crack double digits, over 10 percentage points. Actually, a recent poll shows Trump up by 18% in the state of Iowa, and it's highly rated pollster, very trustworthy. And then also, I do think the likely states for the former president Donald Trump would be Texas and Florida. Mainly Texas because of the border crisis, so I do expect Trump to actually expand on his margin from 2020. I don't think the state will get closer. I just think it would go even more to the right because of immigration, and Joe Biden is indeed disapproved of on the issue of immigration more than any other, besides obviously inflation. You can argue that. But as for the state of Florida, Hispanics are really shifting towards the right. Specifically, Cuban Americans are trending towards the right. DeSantis won by 20 points back in the 2022 midterms. Marco Rubio had an amazing victory as well. Miami-Dade County also flipped from blue to red in 2022. And recent polling averages from RCP averages shows that the former president Donald Trump is on track to win the state of Florida by 10.5%, cracking double digits. So that's actually a safe margin in this year's election. So actually, Florida would be considered safe in this scenario pre-debate. And the typical solid blue states for Biden are now moving into the likely column, narrowing down the margins. I think New York is now considered likely, as well as New Jersey, I think, is now likely for Joe Biden. So let's go over these states. So the most recent poll from the state of New York from Siena College has Biden up by only 10 percentage points. Now you may say, oh, Biden's still winning. Well, it doesn't matter because he won the state by 23% just 4 years ago. And now he's winning it by all of a sudden only 10 points. And then he's actually winning by only single digits from other polls before that. He's up by 9, he's up by 9 again, and then he's up by 7 from the one at the very bottom. This is disastrous news for Joe Biden. With 1,225 registered voters, Biden's only up by 7 points in the state of New York from a highly rated pollster, and he won it by 23, and now he's winning it by likely margin. This is not good news for Joe Biden. I think if Trump can make gains in the Bronx, definitely, I think he might be able to make this state very close, but still Biden's going to more than likely win this state at the end of the day, no doubt about it. But as for New Jersey, on the other hand, recent polling actually shows Biden only up in this state by 7 percentage points, which is going to be considered a likely margin with 1,000 registered voters, and it's from the Hill and Emerson College, which are very highly accurate rated pollsters, A+ on 538, I believe. So considering he's up by 7 points on a highly accurate pollster, I think he's going to win New Jersey ultimately at the end of the day by probably a likely margin instead of a safe one, which is what we're used to seeing. And I also do think that Biden's going to win Colorado by a comfortable margin. I actually do expect this state to get bluer, which is kind of the opposite of the entire nation. I do think Biden will crack double digits, probably get over 10% in the state of Colorado. I do think the state is just shifting towards the left. It's hard for Trump to overcome this left trendy state. You take a look at recent polling. Regardless of my opinion, recent polling shows that Biden's going to win it by less of a margin than I have him personally. He wins it by 6.5 according to RCP averages, which is horrible considering that he won the state by nearly 13 points just 4 years ago. But regardless of what the polls say, I just do think that the state is too left trendy, so I do think Biden's going to overperform on what the polls are actually saying in this state. And then as well as New Mexico, I do expect Biden to comfortably win it by a likely margin of somewhere in between 7 to 10 percentage points. I think that would be fair to say. This state is also a pretty Democratic swing state. Even though it's considered a swing or battleground state, I still do think it's one of the more comfortable ones for Joe Biden. I just think it's hard for Trump to overcome the votes in a Democratic stronghold county. For example, Albuquerque, New Mexico, it's very hard for Trump to do that. For Nevada, Donald Trump is winning this according to the RCP average on the aggregate by 6.5 percentage points. Now, to be fair, this state typically overestimates Republicans in general. For example, the 2022 midterms. So let's say this was off by a couple points, so Trump ends up winning it by 4 instead of 6. Still doesn't matter, as Donald Trump is comfortably winning Nevada by a likely to lean margin according to RCP averages. I think if Trump was able to flip Washoe or Reno County in Nevada, I think he's on track to win this state. And also, if he can make gains among Hispanic voters, that is key to a Trump victory in the state, especially Clark County or the Vegas area is pretty much the only thing holding Trump back from actually winning the state. Because if you were to erase the Vegas area from Nevada, every single other county basically is heavy Republican, and so basically the Vegas Strip is the only thing holding Trump back from actually winning the state, in which I think he is going to make gains significantly, and this state will ultimately vote for him this November. And then as for the state of North Carolina, Donald Trump, believe it or not, is up on the RCP average aggregate by exactly 8%. Guys, 8 percentage points. Keep in mind, this is a state that he won by 1.5% just 4 years ago, and now he's ultimately doing 7 percentage points better according to the polls, which is going to be considered a likely margin. This state ultimately is getting a whole lot redder than a lot of people think. Republicans are making significant gains in terms of new registered voters. Voter registration is very important for a Trump victory in this state. The new poll actually shows Mark Robinson on the governorship winning the state by 4 percentage points, defeating Josh Stein. And the fact that we all know Trump is expected to outperform Mark Robinson, who's up by 4 points according to a new poll, maybe Trump gets even more than 4 points. And RCP is showing exactly that. Trump gets 8 points on average in the state of North Carolina. And then as for the deep southern state of Georgia, on average Trump is up in the state by 6.5 percentage points. Let's say he is overestimated by like 1 to 2%. Doesn't matter, he's still up by arguably 4 to 5%, which is going to be considered a lean to likely margin at the end of the day. And keep in mind, guys, that these polls are five-way races with all the third-party candidates included, which is realistic. We have Kennedy, we have West, and we have Stein. And this is not good news for Joe Biden, because if you were to take away all these third-party candidates, it would not be realistic to what we are seeing in reality, because these third-party candidates do exist, and they are up on the ballot, and you can vote for them. So this is more on the accurate side, which is not good news for Joe Biden, considering Trump's up by 6.4% in the state of Georgia. I think if Biden does not hold up to his numbers in the Atlanta area, the metropolitan area, and the suburbs are very important, and Biden only won the state by a margin of 10,000 votes, which is like 0.2%. Very slim majority, and I do expect the state to more than likely flip for Donald Trump. I think Trump should make gains among key minority groups, for example, African American voters, which helped Biden win the state. It swung it 6 points to the left just 4 years ago, but Trump is cracking nearly 20 points among African American voters according to the latest polls. And keep in mind, those exact polls underestimated the former president among black support 4 years ago. So if you were to apply that polling error, Trump realistically wins that support by over 20%, which is more than enough to give in the state of Georgia for his column. And then here's an interesting one. In the five-way race in the state of Virginia, Biden's only up by a margin of 2%. Keep in mind he won the state by 10 percentage points. He cracked double digits back in 2020. And now it's swinging 8 points to the right. That's the shift in this year's election according to RCP averages. This is not good news for Joe Biden, but still at the end of the day, he's ultimately going to win the state by a lean margin. And considering that the governor here, Glenn Youngkin, who is very popular, currently at a 56% approval rating, has endorsed Donald Trump, I think that alone could already sway the race in favor of the former president. And considering that he's not facing the outlash that he was in 2020, we don't have COVID, obviously, that went in favor of Biden. We don't have the BLM momentum that went in favor of Joe Biden. We don't have the major celebrity endorsements for Joe Biden this time around. A lot of them publicly stated that they regret endorsing him, and some won't, and some may actually endorse Donald Trump or have already. And this is all not good news for Joe Biden this come November. And keep in mind that we have more third-party candidates than we did in 2020 in this year's election, and that's something that limited Donald Trump in 2020 and helped him in 2016 defeat Hillary Clinton, especially in the Rust Belt. For example, Jill Stein really helped Donald Trump in some of these key important states. So ultimately, at the end of the day, Joe Biden's going to win Virginia by a couple percentage points, but it's still a lean margin. And then as for New Hampshire, Biden's lead in the state is actually surprisingly a lot better than any other swing state, for example, like Georgia or even North Carolina or even Nevada. He's up on average, according to RCP, in the state of New Hampshire by 6.3%, which is going to be considered a lean to arguably a likely margin at the end of the day. And I do want to mention that this state is very anti-incumbent, and Donald Trump is a challenger, and they favor the challenger. So that alone can already help Trump in the long run. But still, I do think Biden would win New Hampshire by probably a lean margin by somewhere somewhere in between 3 to 5 percentage points if the election was held today in the month of June. And as for Minnesota, on average, Biden's lead in the state is only by exactly 3 percentage points according to the aggregate from RCP averages. The latest poll, believe it or not, from the Hill and Emerson from this exact month with 100,000 registered voters has it a dead tie between Trump and Biden at 45 to 45%, which is not good news considering that just 4 years ago he won it by 7 percentage points. Like I mentioned earlier, considering he does not have the BLM momentum, that's what really pushed those suburbs here in Minneapolis to the left back in 2020. And I do expect the state to narrow up significantly, but still, Biden's going to win it by a lean margin. And then that's for the state of Arizona, another border state, which that issue alone can go in favor of Donald Trump and impact the race negatively on Joe Biden. With all the third-party candidates included, Trump, Biden, Kennedy, West, and Stein, you can find that on the RCP average aggregate, Trump has a lead of 6 percentage points in this state, which is horrible for Biden considering he won it back in 2020 by like 11,000 votes. And I do think the issue of immigration alone could already give Trump the victory because the margin of error for Biden was just so low. But I am going to be honest, this state is a left trendy state. Democrats have been making significant gains in the state of Arizona in terms of new voters registration. A lot of people from California are moving down to the state of Arizona, and if they bring their political views with them, it's going to push the state blue towards the left. They elected a Democratic governor in 2022 midterms, Katie Hobbs, which they haven't done so since like 2009. They also have a Democratic senator, so I do think that this state is getting bluer as time goes on. But in this election in 2024, if the election is held today, I do think Trump is more than likely going to win the state of Arizona by a lean margin in 2024. Now, moving on to the three most important Rust Belt states that can ultimately decide the winner of the 2024 election before I end off this video, starting off with Wisconsin. This 5-way race, if the election was held today according to the RCP average aggregate, Trump only wins this state, believe it or not, by 0.3%. And here's when the polls get really not trustworthy, because apparently he's gonna win Pennsylvania, in which voted to the left of Wisconsin by 3%. Meanwhile, a redder state, Wisconsin, which is much more red than Pennsylvania, goes to Trump by a lesser margin. So this is when the polls get unrealistic. But in my opinion, I think he's going to win it by a lean margin of somewhere in between 1 to 2 percentage points. I think is more on the accurate side. And I think it's going to come down to those 20,000 voters that Biden won it by, a margin of 0.6%. But keep in mind that that margin is less than the margin Trump won it by in 2016 of 0.7%. So I do expect that if Biden does not hold up to his numbers in Milwaukee, stronghold Democratic counties, it's honestly probably going to flip to Trump in 2024. I think if Trump is able to skyrocket the turnout in Green Bay or stronghold Republican counties, I think he's on track to win the state in 2024. It's going to come down to issues like inflation, the economy. Are you poorer now than where you were 4 years ago? A lot of people are, by the way. Honestly, with all these Rust Belt states, not just Wisconsin, it's going to come down to the hardworking class, those blue-collar workers, specifically the union workers, obviously, and also college-educated voters. Biden did amazing with them, but I do expect Trump to make somewhat gains among college-educated voters. And then as for Michigan, believe it or not, Trump received more votes than Biden did in the primaries, and he's not even the incumbent. And he was facing a real opponent, challenger like Nikki Haley, while Biden, on the other hand, had no primary contest and somehow still received less votes than the former president as an incumbent, guys. Which goes to show you how exactly he has zero enthusiasm in this state. But I am going to make it clear that he won this state by nearly 3% in 2020 by a margin of 2.8%, which was the bluest Rust Belt state out of the most important 3 ones. So I do think that Biden still has a chance in the state of Michigan, considering that he got endorsed here by the governor Gretchen Whitmer, who is very popular. She had an amazing performance back in 2022. She won by double digits. So I think that alone can help him. She could carry him, but will she carry him at the end of the day? I'm not quite sure. Considering that 100,000 people voted uncommitted in the Democratic primaries, he has no enthusiasm. He has no momentum. I think Trump has all the momentum in the state with this 5-way race, and I think Kennedy could be a spoiler. It can help Trump in the long run, but at the end of the day, he's up by 0.1% on average, according to RCP. I do think this is a dead tie at the current moment. If the election was held today, I think it's a toss-up, but still, I'm going to give the narrow victor to Donald Trump by under percentage point by tilt margin in the state of Michigan, extremely narrow and close. And then the last and final state before I end off this video with its 19 electoral votes, Joe Biden's own home state. He was born and raised here, and also he has name recognition. I think he can connect to a lot of that voters, so obviously he has that advantage alone. He would probably be favored in this state. Well, guess what? No, he's not. Trump is up by 3 points in Biden's own home state, in which he carried by 1.2%, a margin of 81,000 votes back in 2020. And you have literally the most accurate pollsters, The Hill, Emerson, showing Trump up by 3. You have the New York Times, Siena College, a highly rated pollsters, Trump's up by even more, 4 among over 1,000 likely voters. Even Fox News, who surprisingly overestimated Joe Biden, shows Trump up by 2 in this 5-area race. So at the end of the day, Trump's going to flip Pennsylvania and win it by a lean margin of somewhere in between 1 to 2 percentage points if the election is held today. I think if Trump's able to flip Erie County and northwestern Pennsylvania, I think he's probably going to win his state. And if he's able to perform very well in Century County as well as Northampton, I think if he can flip that county, Biden only won it by 0.7%, he might win his state. And if Biden does not hold up to his numbers in some of these stronghold Democratic counties like Philadelphia and the Pittsburgh suburbs, which the suburbs are very important here, and I think that's what can decide this election. It's going to come down to suburban women. And also, speaking of Philadelphia, Trump had a rally here, so I do think he has the momentum going into the election. And if the election was held today, especially, Trump is definitely going to win. So at the end of the day, he went to 312 electoral votes to Joe Biden's 226, which would send him off to retirement. So let me know your overall thoughts on this map in the comment section down below. What states you agree with or disagree with and why. And one last final reminder is to subscribe as we're approaching 3,000 and click the bell so you don't miss out on any of my content. Also, we have memberships, you can find a link to that in the description section. And don't forget to press the like button, give this video a thumbs up. That's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for watching.